Hello, everybody. This is Jennifer Way, Intuitive Consultant, and you are listening to the Self-Consciousness Podcast. Thank you so much for joining. Hopefully my audio levels are a little higher this time around. I really appreciate all of the feedback and everything that we heard from you guys after the first episode. It's so exciting for me and Dupree to be able to do this. You have no idea. This is it really makes us excited and happy. Today's episode is all about connection. So I've brought on a special guest. Her name is Samantha Cagman. She is at Bloom with Sam on Instagram. And we had a really wonderful and fun conversation because I just love her so much. And then there's also a little bit of me and Dupree. So I really hope you enjoy this week's episode. And talk to you soon. So I really love talking about talking. I really love talking about communication. Communication is just a really important thing in my life. I am a double Gemini, so I'm all about air and Mercury. I am all about communication. I have a Pisces moon, so it's really important that whatever I do in my life, it's kind of like tied to my emotional well-being. So talking is therapeutic for me. I definitely seek out a lot of connection. And I've got a lot of observations about kind of where we're headed when it comes to communication and connection, especially when it comes to social media and things like that. This old ass Gen Xer is definitely feels a little left out, not left out. Definitely, I feel like I'm not exactly behind everything that social media stands for. And I kind of go into that a little bit in the podcast. I explain why that is. How do we connect with one another? How does that impact our connections within ourselves? How do we receive connection from other people? One of the things about communication that you'll hear me say a lot is that words hold a vibration, whether they're written or spoken. And that vibration changes throughout history depending on the consciousness of the people who are using it. A lot of people in the spiritual field are waking up to the fact that these words are being used in the wrong way. They are losing their vibration. They're not communicating effectively anymore, and things are speeding up. Expansion and ascension is speeding up. I am not a QAnon conspiracy person. I just really want to put that out there. I know that anyone who is listening to this and knows anything about what I do might wonder, but no, thank you. No, thank you. For me, it's very important that as we expand our consciousness and we really put effort and energy into this, we are also using new terminology, new words that hold a better vibration to really better express what we do. This is I always kind of reference to spirituality or the spiritual community or the New Age movement. And I just really want to think of it. And I really hope I can push myself to talk about it like this instead, where I'm talking about it like this is just the next phase of human evolution where we all accept this. And we are being shaken up. We are being broken apart. We are being disconnected on purpose. So, it's really all about trying to connect better with yourself. We're so dominated by outside thought and view and perspectives that it's just very difficult to hear what's going on inside. I hope you enjoy the podcast, and I hope to keep you as a loyal listener. I'd like to welcome Samantha Cagman to the Self-Consciousness Podcast today. I am so honored to know you, to have you on the show, and to just talk to you today. And why don't you go ahead and explain a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. First of all, I am honored to be here. I'm honored to be a friend of yours, and this is very beautiful, and I'm very excited to be a part of this. So I am a yoga instructor. I teach meditation. I do Reiki. I read cards. I am just all around incredibly passionate about my fellow human beings for the most part, and um, giving them the space, holding space, and also providing the space for them to really see and feel and honor themselves and every aspect of themselves, and every part of what made them the person that they are today, and working through that and embracing it. And yeah, I've come a long way, and it all started with yoga.
I love that.
I do too. Not in like a like a narcissistic way. Like I really, it's a beautiful path, and I'm very appreciative that I found it.
Yeah. It's the path you're meant to take.
Mm-hmm.
I love that journey for you.
Yes.
I saw someone wrote that on like a group, like a live stream yesterday, and I was like, oof, cringe.
It's just very Alexis.
Yeah.
I love that for you. I love that for us.
I love that journey for you. Well, the reason I wanted to talk to you today is because, I have been, this episode is about connection.
Beautiful.
And I noticed that, and what I really wanted you to kind of explain to me is, I have a lot of qualms with social media in general. I know it's something that we have to accept, especially within any kind of entrepreneurial business, in terms of promotion and marketing. But there's an added aspect to that, which is this idea of connecting with the audience and really showcasing some authenticity. That I do love. But I, of course, I'm old, so I do remember a time when, we didn't have this kind of stuff. So I wanted to talk to you. I wanted you to kind of about or explain how you are able to connect with people through social media. And then we can just talk about all those other things that you and I were furiously texting about the other day.
Well, and I think I might have said this to you the other day. It's nothing. I didn't do anything special. I just showed up. And my social media didn't grow from a place other than like my students wanted a place to follow me, and then my students have shared things that I posted, and people have come from there. Yeah. And trying to come from to being authentic has always come really easy for me, because I've kind of seen no other way. And I've been thinking about this, knowing that we were sort of going to talk about this, and like, who am I, and how did I become this person? And I listened to your other pod, like your last week's episode, and like listening to you and Dupree talk about your childhoods and the shame and all of that. And I grew up in a household, like I'm for nobody can see me, I am a big girl, and I grew up in a household with big parents, and they didn't care. Like, I remember there was a point where my mom did have like Slim Fast in the fridge, but like I think it was just because that was a thing that you did in the 90s. So like, even if you were skinny, you were drinking Slim Fast. Yeah. So
God, you really just brought me back.
Yeah, I know. I see the big red letters.
Oh boy.
And so nobody hid that. And I remember also, like, my mom was a sassy lady. And we were out somewhere sometime, and I was a small child, and somebody had called her fat as an insult. And she, and I hope this isn't too loud for this podcast, but she was like, I'm fat? Where? When did this happen? And just this whole dramatic, like, it was beautiful. And it really taught me, like, And so
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
So I never felt inherently ashamed of that, and people and kids would make fun of me, like that was like their target to try and bring me down, and I'd be like, all right, I'm still dope though, so
Yes, you
not
are.
really sure what you're going for. So I never had a desire to be inauthentic. Not even a desire really, but just
Mm.
a need. I never had a need to hide. Um,
So in a
which
way,
I'm
you held this connection to your true self throughout childhood. You
Yes.
didn't fragment off.
No, I
Yeah.
mean, I did do things to fit in, um, as we all do, but I
Yeah.
never had to, like, I was never ashamed of that aspect of myself, which is the outward aspect, myself to the world.
Yeah.
Um, Now there were definitely things I hid, like sadness and
Yeah.
all around bad feelings, but yeah, so walking into a yoga studio, and standing at the front of the room as a big girl, people would walk in and I could just feel and sense and see this, like, oh, this is my teacher, that this is what's happening, especially in this area where everyone who goes to yoga studios, like, type A, you
Yeah.
know super Lululemon tiny little things.
Yeah.
And I'd be at the front of the room and just presenting my whole self.
Yeah.
So I brought that online with me, and um yeah, that's how I've continued on. And then so I started to share aspects of what led me to yoga, aspects of my deeper self, things that you wouldn't know if you didn't know me,
Yeah.
because I am very upfront about who I am and what I'm about, and my mental health and all of that. I'm, as you are, an empath, so I need to feel you before I know
Mm.
that you are somebody I want in my life.
Yeah.
Um,
You can feel me anytime.
I Please, I'm waiting for COVID be damned.
Speaking of touching Sam, I experienced probably the greatest hug of my lifetime. The last time I saw him in person was at the God
The
that
pop up.
yep, at the pop-up market. JC Women's Collaborative. Thank you so much.
Shout out to JC Women's
Shout
Collaborative.
out to Jenna and Julie and everyone from that group who I've met, who I'm like just obsessed with. But yeah, and you gave me this hug, and it's funny because after like a couple of seconds, I was like, I felt my weird social awkwardness, and I was like, is she gonna let go? And there's part of me that's like, I don't really want her to let go. Like, this is so, and my kids were there, and I was just like, I'm just gonna let this be. And it was almost like you on some level, you were like, you're gonna let this be. It was
Well,
just
I'm a big
so
believer in
amazing.
20-second hugs. I don't know if you've heard about 20-second
No,
hugs.
that would
Oh,
explain
it's
it.
it's so beautiful. So 20-second hugs, and this falls in with my line of work. So, like, when you're being hugged in the way, especially that I hug, like, I'm like, I am embracing you. We're having a moment.
Oh, I felt
Um
it.
yeah, your body relaxes into it. Like, all of your tension drops,
Yeah.
all of your barriers drop. So 20-second hugs are my jam.
Do you think 20-second hugs work on yourself?
I wish you could see me right now as I wrap my arms around myself.
We are
They
so connected
do.
right now. I can see. Okay, we're not on video, but I can see. I'm just kidding. I
um
love that. I mean, I feel like it works. Like, I hugged myself the other day. I was literally like patting myself on the back,
oh
and I was like, I just needed a hug, and it kind of did it for me. I was like, this works. I can get with this.
I think it can, and I think I'm trying to learn what that means, in terms of, like, really being able to hold yourself
Mm,
and trust yourself. So for me, hugs are like safety, embrace,
mm,
love, trust, and and still wrestling with like, we have all of those things within ourselves.
We do. I mean, we're obviously here to connect with other people. Otherwise, there would only be one person here on Earth. Like
Correct.
we're all, there's so many of us here. It's obvious we are meant to be here to form relationships, to experience mirrors and projections and all that jazz. So we are here to form those connections, and there's so many biological connections that like people aren't able to experience right now because of COVID, right? Whether that's hugging,
Yes.
sharing an actual physical space with somebody, um, and also not to mention the way we all express love, the way we all kind of what our love languages are, whether it's like through affection or whether it's through like acts of service or whatever that is. But for a lot of us whose love language is about affection and physical touch, um there's so many people who really need that. I mean, that is a human need. Touch and affection, like those are human needs. Like we absolutely need. I think of, oh god, I'm gonna have to start referencing a lot of kids movies now because I like, and I don't like kids. I didn't like kids movies when I was a kid, and now of course I have to watch all of them. But we watched The Croods, the second one, and there's a part where they're talking about the family pile, like they all sleep in a big pile, like piled up and
Aww.
wrapped up in one another. And I know that that's also kind of like a movement in certain communities that are very like, it's really about like a communal sleep, like we all sleep in the same bed, or we all kind of, I mean, we don't do that in my house because
Personal space.
yeah, personal space. So but yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I always like, oof, this is not going to be coherent at all. I want to kind of go back to what we had been talking about. um oh my god, so I'm just going back on our our texts. Stan. I learned a new word. That was fun.
I stand Jen.
I was like, I'm sorry, what? I don't speak millennial.
I
Sorry.
spend too much time on TikTok. I don't speak millennial, but I've had
Is that an
to learn a lot
insult?
for myself.
I shouldn't I
No, we're
shouldn't
the same
like
person.
separate, and okay, that's true. We are. We definitely are.
You may be
Um
older than me in actual physical time on this earth, but trust me, we are of the same cloth.
I completely agree. But yeah, I mean, like, I think there is something to be said about that sort of like energetic connection. I guess my hope is with everything that we are experiencing right now that people are starting to understand or be less afraid or tap into their extrasensory perception, which I feel like extrasensory is just a misnomer because it's not outside of you. I feel like it's all inside.
Oh
Anyway,
yeah.
yeah. I
So
feel like I
it's
had a
funny.
rant I was preparing, but it just left my brain, which is probably good. Go
It may
ahead.
come back.
Yeah.
So after our we had a, for those of you who weren't there, there was a little JC Women's Collaborative, shout out again,
Yeah.
meetup last week online, and Jen was one of the speakers, and then we all broke off into little groups afterwards. And in one of the groups I was in, one of the women was like, so is everybody here like into esoteric things? And I was like, whoa, first of all, let me look up that word. Second of all, do you really find these things to be esoteric? And it was just very interesting, though I'm not really in a bubble per se, but I've collected a lot of spiritual friends over the last 4 or 5 years, and so to see that people still find these things to
Yeah.
be like, ooh, way outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to me.
It's this need to label and organize information
True.
in order to feel power. Like I feel like because we're so disempowered, and like my big thing is words, and I know that the old language that we have for all of this shit holds a vibration of skepticism. It literally holds it within the words. If you look up esoteric, if you look up metaphysical, if you look up extrasensory, if you look up psychic, all of these things have that wonderful phrase, this is a pseudoscience. And that is in effect the vibration that those words hold for the majority of the population, and for good reason. Because if you can access your own individual connector system to literally anybody, telepathy, this goes into so many things. This is literally where we are meant to go. We are able to do these things, but we have forgotten, we have fallen asleep, we've fallen. So that's, we can point to Bible stuff, but I don't like to get too far into that, but the words itself hold a specific vibration to kind of throw you off. That's the feeling I get. And that's why it's so important right now to develop new language for this stuff. These languages, esoteric, it helps people who are really unfamiliar, who might have some skepticism or prejudgment, or just they really can't relate or connect to these concepts because they like you said, they're still outside of themselves. There's just so much stigma attached to this world. But this world is literally human evolution. This is the natural course of human evolution. Human beings are divine. You hold God within yourself. It is not something you have to grasp. It's not something you have to please. We also kind of have to respect people are coming from this place of disbelief. Not to mention, and I know this is where I'm sorry, I'm just going to go off.
Please.
Not to mention, and this is where I know you're going to jump in, so much of the spiritual field has been hijacked into this false light, this shadow, and now this conspiracy. This is the shadow.
How did you know that's where I wanted to go today?
Because I'm girl, I am psychic, not even playing.
Oh my God, you
but
are.
This is a big, and I adore Jessa Reed. I don't know if I've raved about her to you, but
No.
everyone who is mildly interested in this, it might be overwhelming because she goes into it deep, but you need to pay attention to what she says. Her podcast is called Awakening OD, and which stands for Awakening Orientation Department. So if you want an introduction to all of this stuff, listen to her. How does it hit you? Where does it hit you? That's how you figure out what you can kind of connect to, what feels, you might be, this is where you exercise your discernment, basically. And unfortunately in this world, especially with all these conspiracy theorists, the QAnon and all that stuff, I mean, it has just gotten so mishmashed. And this is all very much by design. I won't go too far into that either, because it just doesn't feel right for me to go into all that stuff. But it is now, and this, this comes up for me because of honestly what you've been posting about that one woman that you follow, and how there's so many people in the spiritual field that are just going down this road. And it's the dark side of human evolution, of the spirituality, because there are let's just say there is a faction or two that literally do not want you discovering your own power, your sense of sovereignty, your ability, your free will, your ability to choose about what you consume media-wise, what you consume belief-wise. We're so indoctrinated. It's we are programmed to disbelieve this stuff, and that's where the vibration, that's why all of these words hold that vibration of foreign, weird, crazy. That's another word that is going to come up a lot, because you will be told you are crazy, you will feel like you're crazy, and trust me, I've gone through the motions, and then eventually you get to a point where you're I just don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what honestly, when I work with my guides, and I'm but how do I know I'm not crazy? They're you don't. And I'm fuck, you're right. God, they're you literally just have to keep checking.
Yeah.
That's fun. Anyway, go ahead. I want to hear I want to feel the wave. Let's get into it.
Where to begin? So over the last year, really, we've seen all of this develop. So I think one of the few gifts perhaps of 2020 in a nutshell was that it really put like a colossal spotlight on the negative impact that spiritual bypassing has on the world and on ourselves.
Oh,
yeah, burn.
yes. Burn.
So if it's just like it, and I was saying this and feeling this at the beginning, like in March of 2020, like this was a golden opportunity. Even I was like, this is the universe is being like, here, go inward, focus on your capital S self without distractions and excuses.
Yeah.
And the people who weren't comfortable enough to do that refused to accept things as they are, and instead just went down rabbit holes of conspiracy theories to make themselves feel better about uncertain times.
Yeah.
And it really didn't take off until there was like that whole hashtag save the children thing.
Oh God.
And that wrapped in people who were like, well, I love children. Of course, let's save the children. And then it just spiraled from there. And I have spent the better part of the last like 6 months just observing with like my hand in a popcorn bowl all of QAnon like unfold. I know every single theory. It's insane that so many people, and people who I have respected and admired, have either like outright started to speak on and share these crazy, there's the first one, beliefs and outlandish claims. Instead of just like being in this place where like, yes, we don't have control over our reality and over what's happening right now, and just going into this like, again, spiritual bypassing, just like an escapism. Escapism just fueled by like magical thinking and emotionally driven rationale that like
it's a literally like a wedge of disconnecting from yourself, and you have to ask yourself like, how is this serving me to do this, like to turn outward and start pursuing like pedophile rings? I mean, yes, it's got to happen, but yeah.
But it's and then there's, so for a while I still followed some people on Instagram because I live on the internet now. And just to see,
do you get your mail forwarded there? Like
I do. It comes to at Bloom with Sam. And you know, it's a very weird time to try to come into the spiritual community, because you have these people who are sort of I don't know, like almost hijacking like the highways to spirituality. Like there's people who are like, I'm channeling from this galactic, you know, earth center, and it's like all of this really fear-based stuff, and it's like, okay, so you're telling me COVID and masks are a hoax because they're fear-based things, but you're fueling a whole other kind of fear. So what's really happening? What's going on here?
This is again, like, this is all meant to disconnect us, because once we're isolated and we're in a fear state, we are so easily our energy is consumed. I mean, I want to talk about energy consumption just for a sec. And I don't know if I'm sure I've gone off with this. I want to talk to that sort of that save the children thing. I don't know. There's someone that I was following was like, they're, you know, not only the save the children, but this like cannibalism thing and the, the sacred rites and
adrenochrome.
I do believe that there are these factions out there that have these secret societies and like all that. I mean, so much in our media is like bling bling, like showing messages about it. It's really like all in plain sight. Gigi Young has a series on all that stuff. I don't go too far into it because it makes me feel yucky. So I don't really like to go too far into it. But I did ask my personal guidance system about all of that stuff. And they said, I was like, is that really happening? Of course, pedophilia is happening. I mean, it was so much worse. Look at like, just search up Shirley Temple. I mean, just look at some old films of her. Some dance numbers where she's in a group, like with a large group of men, and she's in a little tiny skirt. It's like, And also any parents who have little girls or little boys, for that matter, we are fully aware of the creepy people who lurk, and it's, for me, it's like my biggest nightmare. So it's never been a surprise to me that people are creepy. And one of the things, again, I was going to say, Jessa Reed, I joined her Patreon, so I'm like watching her live casts, and she's like, if you're a kid of the 80s and the 90s, you were molested. I mean, like, that's just,
Yep.
that's what we lived in. So when I kind of talked to my guides about it, it was like, basically what I got was, so there's this concept that I've been given. It's like, I don't even like to say that kind of shit. There's this concept that I'm kind of tapping into, and it has to do with energetic consumption. If you look at kind of the upper echelons of like celebrity and that kind of exposure, we consume their energy. We plug cords right into them and we drain it out. This is like a energetic thing, right? They have like a million cords plugged into them. People are basically consuming their energy. They're commodities now. People live off of them. People feed off of them. That shouldn't be such a big stretch.
Mhm.
One of the things that was brought up is that, so we are all guilty of this sort of consumption of energy. All child stars, all like child actors are the literal result of pedophilia on an energetic level. Some of them, unfortunately, have experienced it on a physical level. And those are the ones that devolve into like the drugs and, you know, all the mental issues and things like that. I look at like Corey Haim. I don't even know if you know who that is. I feel like,
Oh yeah.
but like
I
that.
actually love conspiracy theories and things like that, so I definitely am aware of the whole Corey squared situation.
Like, and I don't, but that's what Hollywood is. It feeds off of it's all this parasitic kind of stuff. So all these people that are into Save the Children, do you go to Disneyland? Do you watch movies that contain child actors? Do you have Pinterest boards with baby pictures? Do you only respond to pictures of children? Okay, that's my own little negative thing, because I'm like, people don't respond to any of the work that I do that I post on Facebook. They only literally respond when I post pictures of my kids. And honestly, it's like, you are all engaging in energetic pedophilia. Okay, yes, maybe it's not sexual, but there is a level, and it ties into this. There is a consumption of energy happening. So any kid that is in the business or in show business or any of that stuff, they are there for our consumption. So it's like, it's just pay attention to that kind of shit, people. It's like, you know, it's not obviously as bad as like physical abuse, but that kind of and like slavery and you know, there's so much shit in this world that goes on.
Yeah.
But it's like, at the very top level, this is related, but this has to do with energetic consumption, and like we're doing that. You know, like when I see kids in movies, like child actors, oh god, it kills me, because I'm just like, that's not where you're supposed to be.
Right.
Do we need to watch children on screen? Like, I don't, you know, maybe it's good for other kids to see it, but just the exploitation of children is not, it's not isolated to sex slaves, you know, child labor, you know, all that stuff. It's also tied to this energy consumption. I don't know if that makes any sense. That was my ramble.
1,000%.
Let me take a breath.
Yeah. I remember
Right.
we had this conversation the first time that we
Oh, we did.
had alone time.
Yes.
Um
Sorry that I
and
blame that on plant medicine, that I have no memory. Anyway.
but
Yeah.
it makes so much sense. And it's horrifying. And
Yeah. But we got to
the
check
way that
ourselves with that, you know?
yeah. I mean, I don't like kids, so whoop,
It's perfect.
I sign off from that a little bit.
You know what's so weird is like when someone tells me they don't like kids, right away I'm like, that's good people. Like there's just something inside of me that's like, she knows what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is very strange to see child actors, and then also things like toddlers and tiaras and
Oh
like
God.
hypersexualization of children. They
Hypersexualization.
wear more makeup than I do.
Oh my God. You
It's
know, you might be a Save the Children like fighter or warrior, but I'm
but
sure
like
your
save the children
little
from their
baby,
parents.
exactly. I'm sure that your toddler has a bikini. You know how difficult it was for me to find underwear for my daughter that wasn't um like hip huggers. Like I
Ugh.
literally was like, we need to hike this underwear up to your belly button. Like wearing the mom jean equivalent of underwear.
I don't even want to
And I
wear
couldn't find
anything
it. I
under my
couldn't
belly
find it
button.
anywhere. Like none of the major stores sold anything close to that. Back to connection and authenticity. I mean, this also kind of leads into, so there's obviously this objectification of children. Well, we can segue this. I'm going to be the queen of segues.
Yes.
To the objectification of women and the perfection and that sort of expectation on social media platforms and Instagram. And how do we connect with one another if we're filtering ourselves, if we're adjusting our authentic truth to really fit into this kind of like the marketing guidelines? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's not easy because Instagram is for the most part highly filtered,
Yeah.
highly catered, highly curated, and you don't I don't know, there you don't see too much like true authenticity. Um and I found that like the antidote to shame is to speak your truth. And
Oh yeah.
sit with that, let it resonate, let it soak in.
Maybe
um
create an intention for it.
uh so I started to mute or just straight up unfollow people that were, especially within this last year, again,
Yeah.
like highlighting how much this last year of, quote unquote lockdown, quarantine, whatever, has presented us with. So if the people that I have followed, every time that they go on their camera, have a full face of makeup, they're all dressed up, they're like, it just doesn't sit right with me.
Mm.
If you're not talking about you and how this is affecting you and how this is affecting the collective, like that's a big one. Like seeing outside yourself and seeing, how what has been going on is really affecting everybody. It's just like red flag, red flag, red flag.
Mm.
Because I say this to people all the time, like if you're saying that you're doing great right now, you are lying to me or yourself or both.
Yeah.
And sure, you might have great days. I hope that you do, but overall there's just this cloud of uncertainty, of fear, of anger, of frustration, of sadness, all of it, that
Yeah.
if you're not feeling it, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So
But I like the way you said in the beginning, you were like, I just showed up.
yeah,
So, like, what does that mean for you? Like, showing up? Like, when you, what does that mean for you?
for me personally, so right, actually at the beginning of, so in last March, like, immediately as soon as yoga studio shut down and I was home, I made like an 8-minute long Instagram video about fear
Mm.
and the fear that we were all feeling, and that was like the first way I showed up,
Yeah.
to be like, fear is normal, fear is a feeling that you need to feel, fear is scary, this is scary, but we have some tools in our toolbox that we can use to combat it, or hold it better. And then doing what I could have done best at that time to help, like, hold your hand. So I like I said, I had cultivated a toolkit, so like yoga, breathing, meditation, distance Reiki, all of the things I could do, and then talking about how this was affecting me during all of this in a very unfiltered way, an again authentic way. Like I'm not having a good time. Like, so if you're not having a good time,
Yeah.
you're not alone. And I hope that you can show up for yourself and other people in that way, like to let them know that if like it's the normal is to not be having a good time right now.
Yeah.
That's what's normal.
Yeah. No, like 100%. I'm just reading, I'm going to be reading like this intro to this book called The Anatomy of Loneliness. That's Teal Swan. I know a lot of people don't like Teal Swan, and that's okay. And I definitely have like things I don't like about her. We are conceived in connection. We are suckled in the security and warmth of connection from the very moment that our mothers hold us against their breasts. I didn't like the word breasts. I was going to keep it out, but I'm quoting someone else, so I should just keep it in. I mean, my mom didn't. That was more about a bottle situation. Anyway, we cannot perceive the difference between our mother and ourselves. So it is then in that state of oneness that we are the closest to who and what we really are. So close that we don't even bother to ask the question, who am I? There's no need to do so because we are not differentiated. In the ecstasy of connection, there is profound stillness of being. Our movement through life is not motivated by the angst of having to earn something that we are lacking. Instead, doing is simply a natural expression of being. It's this state of being that is most natural to us, and it's this state of connection that has been corrupted in us. What does that bring up for you?
The mother wound.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done a lot of work on that.
What is that? What's
well, for me personally, I can only speak for myself. I think I discovered in my later years that the reason I had such horrible intimacy issues is because I did not have a bonding with my mother. My mom had me very young and had her own mental health issues, and I was not coddled, swaddled. My dad worked like 3 jobs, and I was only with my mother, and I was left to my own devices more often than not as a small child. So I did not have that bonding. And I was just being or doing, rather, I guess I'm on the more doing side, like taking care of myself and coddling myself from an early age. So Teal Swan triggers my mother wound. Thank you.
Thanks, Teal. Yeah, she's very triggering. That's another.
I do not. Yes, I think I told you this. I do not like her.
Yeah.
But everybody I don't like. A, they hold up a mirror, and B, they have something somewhere, profound to say and share, especially in this community of people. So
and I think it's also worthy to note that if something really doesn't feel right for you, that's valuable as well. So
yeah,
like
we are all connected, but we all have our own truth. And that's a lived experience. So connection is incredibly important, and connection to nature, I think, is and should be where we go back to.
Oh God, yes. Oh God,
Big
yes.
time.
Except for bugs. Ugh. How am I going to get over that? How am I going to get over that? I'm like, I want to live on a kibbutz. For if you don't know what a kibbutz is, it's basically a commune, but they have them in Israel. But like, I basically want to live in that kind of lifestyle. You and I have talked about this, buying land, getting houses. Like everyone lives in community. We farm for ourselves. We do everything ourselves. We try to like make it sustainable. Although, as you and I talked about, we kind of like, let's keep our expectations low for that. We still want to we kind of still want to order from Amazon from time to time. Like we'll find some kind of middle ground. But yeah, one of the things I wanted to talk about, which you talked about before, this idea of the fact that social media came into existence because of specific people who, well, let's say a specific person, Mark Zuckerberg, who is not proven, or it's not really widely discussed, but there is an article about it in like an autism support network that is alluding to the fact that he is most likely on the spectrum. This is from like people who have kind of like witnessed him or worked with him, and they say that he is very much like in like on the autism spectrum, most likely Asperger's. And my whole point is like, well, that's literally that's like people can't connect socially when they have those kinds of that kind of brain. So it's like social cues are missed, like that whole thing. This is the person that by and large invented the biggest social media platform in the world that we are now all connected to. But again, it was created by a person who literally can't connect socially.
Mm. I think that's very interesting. Well, when you think about what Facebook started from, though, was a way to rate faces. Like it was like the OG Tinder
Yeah.
for college kids
Yeah.
exclusively.
Well,
And
there
then
actually used to be a physical Facebook in colleges. If anyone went to
ugh,
college in the 90s or before, you got a physical like pamphlet that was like like printed on cheap like magazine paper that literally had photos, like everyone's graduation photos. So you could
wow.
like flip through the thing and like look at people like, oh, he lived in the West Tower. Shout out Ithaca College. But like, yeah, it was actually a physical thing.
Interesting. So then, yeah, so he recreated that for the online platform.
Yeah.
I'm I'm
But
super.
it was a hot or not thing you were saying, right?
That's what it was at the beginning. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've watched The Social Network a bunch of times. So this is concrete factual evidence. But
Yes.
and then it was brains of other people that were like, but wait, we can make this bigger.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
it was a convenient way to connect. I can't even think about life before that. Like,
Yeah.
how do we connect? How did we connect?
Well, we didn't. I mean, like, one of the things that like I wanted to bring up is like, I remember, let's say you moved through a period of your life, whether it was high school, whether it was like a shitty job, working at Jones Beach, shoveling sand off the parking lot. Not calling anyone out myself. And like those kinds of places where you had a small group of people that you knew and then had some experiences with, and then you like moved on from life, right? You never see them again. You never hear from them again. And every once in a while they might pop up in your head, which by the way is because they're probably thinking of you. Anyway, and they pop up in your head and you're a little like, oh, I wonder whatever happened to so and so. But now not only do you know exactly what happened to all of your so and so's, you see like how many miles they ran this morning. You know, it's like it was such a shift of consciousness, in my
Yeah.
opinion. It was such a shift. And it worried me. It worried me. And it worries me that a lot of those people don't let their kids on social media, a lot of the people who created these things.
It there are parts of it that are a little scary, but what a lot of people don't have is the gift of discernment.
Yeah.
And that's a gift in this social media driven world. Like
Yeah.
the ability to be like, this isn't for me, I don't need this doesn't belong in my feed, in my field. All of that is
Yeah.
but that is what we do kind of in a way have to learn our control over.
Yeah. I knew people before social media and we were close and we used to talk on the phone, and we don't talk on the phone anymore. So understandably, it just could be that they're avoiding me. But I feel like if they like a photo or like a post or send an emoji, it's like their way of showing that they are connecting with me. But I'm like, no, you're not connecting with me right now. In fact, this feels like bullshit to me. Yet at the same time, on my birthday, of course I go on Facebook and I'm like, how many messages did I get from people? So it's weird. It's like it really appeals to our basest and allows people who probably are more on the shy side or more introverted, which by the way, I'm just going to go ahead and say I think introvert is literally just the old word for empath. But I feel like people, I mean, I'm sure, prove me wrong, whatever. But I feel like it's been a perfect opportunity for people who are more introverted to kind of just go and hide. But, of course, we've got this explosion of mental illness and this isolation that really it is ultimately this disconnection that creates this sense of loneliness that people can't come back from. And that's what really worries me about social media, is this false connection.
That's interesting. Because I am, as much as I love connecting in all forms, but I do enjoy that that social media gives me the ability to connect on my terms, which absolutely are like leaving an emoji on a picture or responding to a story with a bunch of hearts. Like,
Yeah.
that is my way of acknowledging that you are existing and you're somebody that I care about. Like, I don't hand those things out freely. Like, I don't dish out emojis.
I was like, I wasn't calling you out.
No,
And
but
by the way, when I do see your emojis, I'm like, oh, I do feel your warmth behind it.
Good. And I hope other people do, because that is a way that I do maintain connections. Because I'm an extroverted introvert. I think that that's right. So I can and will turn on in a setting where that's required. However, I really enjoy the screen, like, and the distance between the cord, if we want to get back to chords.
Yeah.
Like, I don't talk to my parents. I don't.
Yeah.
Part of that is the whole black sheep thing, but and my mom lives in Florida, and I hate talking on the phone, but
I'm
they
sorry. I make you do that all the time.
Well, it's different that you would know if I didn't want to do that. I would give you one word. I would do like the human equivalent of the emoji, where I would just like you to death.
Yes.
You're engaging.
I roll. Yeah.
So it's different. Like, my parents are like, what are you doing? Why aren't you doing this? What is this? What is that? And I'm like, oh. So they have the blessing of being on my social media, so they can see that I'm alive, they can see what I'm up to, without the whole emotional investment behind it. So
that's super valid.
I am grateful for the connection that social media does provide in that aspect. I think we need to find a balance. Like, I kind of hope that this doesn't go away, because this allows us to connect to people all over the world in an instant. So part of me doesn't want to let that go. And the other part of me, like, does want to have a deeper embodied connection in real life to fellow human beings, and also like the world at large. But I really think that it's a blessing and a curse that we do have this form of connection in social media. So if we do revert back to nature, I hope that we can still have this as well.
Yeah. Oh, Sam, this is going to sound cheesy, but it was so well put and so beautiful. And with that, I want to thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you for letting me talk to you today.
Yeah. I really loved that conversation with Sam. I had some really wonderful conversations with these two lovely people today. And I want to include as much as possible from those talks. So now I'm going to turn it over to me and Dupree. Hey, Dupree.
Hey, Jen.
Yeah.
So where should we?
Just kidding. I miss you. It was so nice to do a podcast with you last week.
I know. I miss you too, and this is fun.
You're
fun.
You're fun. Shut up. You're fun.
Yeah. I mean, how should we? I guess maybe we should start off with. I was thinking.
Yeah.
With how I connected with you.
Ooh! Oh my God, that's perfect. Go.
I'm not going to mention where we were,
mm-hmm.
or why we connected, because
Nazis. Sorry. Only a handful of people are gonna understand that. Hey, Amanda.
Yeah. and
Sorry. Go ahead.
that's all we're saying.
That's all we're saying.
But
Okay.
it was a situation where I had to speak with Jen, and
Or the interview.
it was an interview. I wasn't even going to
Yeah.
say that, but yes, it was a past job. It was an
Come on.
interview.
You were interviewing me. Come on.
I was interviewing Jen, not because okay, well, not because like she was working. It's just the policy that we had at the time with interviewing everybody interviewed, so it wasn't like Jen was about to work for me or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I was instantly drawn to Jen
Mhm.
because and I think it was just you and I in the interview room, but I think you mentioned you mentioned your sweaty hands,
Of course.
and,
Of
and my
course
hands
I
were
did.
and my hands were also sweaty. I don't know if that was at the beginning or the end, but that stuck with me because we both apologized for the sweaty hands. You get to, what you should do is, wipe them on your pants if you're in an interview. So we both needed to wipe our hands on ourselves.
Giving each other
And
tips
yeah, right.
on how to
But
not be gross with people you just met.
and it was just it was really pleasant talking to
Like,
Jen.
no. I felt like
And
coming home.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I liked you a lot, and we, like I said, we worked together, and for a few years,
Mhm.
and stayed in contact when things changed, and we're still in contact. But it was just Jen's openness, and just you know, also when she talked about her background and taking breaks to just do her and just to live her life and to um, you know, relax. I respected that because most people are like, "Oh, you have a break in your employment, and this is the
Mhm.
issue." She just was good with it.
I know.
Like
It's like,
that's
sorry,
what I
a person accidentally came out of my crotch and I just didn't know what to do for like 2 years. But I
right.
had to keep it alive. Sorry.
And yeah, and so it was that spirit from Jen that drew me to her.
Hmm.
And she's awesome. She's still awesome. So we've had a connection. And
I feel so much love right now.
because
Same.
it is love. I love you,
Yes, I
Jen.
love you
One of
too.
my greatest friends,
Yeah.
best friends,
Yeah.
and
Best
the
friends.
but there's a difference if we want to talk about there's a difference between how we both communicate. I do not like to talk on the phone.
Hmm.
I don't know why. It's I've always been that way. It just takes a lot of energy out of me to have a conversation on the phone,
Yep.
especially if a
This
bunch
is
of people
true,
are calling.
everybody. This is true.
And Jen's always understood that. And I think with uh, with the quarantine, um, I've had to change up the way I communicate with people, just because. I mean, text is great, but like when you are home, whether you're by yourself or you're with one other person, you have a lot to say to whoever's outside of that little bubble.
Hmm.
So for me, that made me made me get okay with phone calls and voice text messages.
Voice text messages is the shit.
Yeah,
What's up,
but
1994? It's the shit.
but really isn't like you. I think you got comfortable with it because that's what I was comfortable with. But I think you're the opposite, right?
No, well, I prefer voice messages to text messages because I always have so much to vomit say, and it's just too much for my fingers and like at once. So I'm like, let me just give you my vibration. Let me just give you my sound because I need to. It's like I need to move this energy out of my body, and it helps me to speak it. Um, which is just a part of my that's like a part of my makeup. So and
Yeah.
I remember saying I think I said this to you last week. I was like, we can talk on the phone. And you're like, well, I like this. And I was like, no, this is cool. Like this for me is better. Like I will like I feel like there's so much like beauty in our text messages with each other
Yeah.
that like I'll definitely need to insert them in this podcast at some point because they're just really funny. But
And that is totally fine.
yeah,
Oh, but yeah, I
we sign
mean,
off on that.
I sign off. Oh, but yeah, like I'm glad that Jen is cool with the voice text. And I think I really did try to make more phone calls. Like, Jen, and also I have a big brother who likes to do like video calls.
Mm.
And before quarantine, I really hadn't done that, but I did it. And I remember one day sitting down and being like, I'm going to call everybody, everybody that has said, let's talk, let's video. I'm going to do it. And I overwhelmed myself
No,
because
you
I
always
talked
do
to each
that.
person.
You and Tania, you always do
Yeah,
that. You have like,
I,
you're like the lofty goal crew.
yeah. Oh,
Oh,
it was
let's
like,
get jackets,
right.
team jackets.
But yeah, no, it was just like, I think my issue was it was an hour with everybody, so it was just
What?
yeah.
I couldn't even do that, and I can talk like without ceasing. But that's
And it was like one like, okay, spoke to that friend. Let me, because I was in the mood, and I was like, I got the energy, blah blah blah. And right after all of that, I was exhausted. Um, just because it took a lot of energy. So I try to stay in contact with text and voice text messages, um, every day, every other day, just so it doesn't feel as we're not verbally talking to someone directly. Does
yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
absolutely. I mean, we've talked about chords, right?
Yes.
So like I mean it's about an energy exchange because everybody has a cord attachment to the people that they interact with in their lives. You have cord attachments to people maybe you've seen on the street and you made eye contact with. You have an energetic cord with those people, and there is a flow that goes from one person to the other. And in a healthy cord, that is a like an even exchange. But with an unhealthy cord, and this is where you get like energetic vampires and things like that, someone
Hmm.
pulls too much, like me. So that's why it's exhausting. I like people find me exhausting. It's for me, it's a way that I process.
Hmm.
So that's so this
I don't.
this is therapy for me, everybody listening. Thank you.
And it's a little therapy for
Send me
me as
your
well.
bill. Yeah.
Well, see, I don't like you don't drain me. I mean, okay, I
Mm,
think we talked about it a little bit last week, and I don't know if this is really why I'm exhausted after talking.
mm,
Um, and I like talking to people, but I grew up an introvert, and I thought that you know, um, even though I didn't really feel totally like me, because I do like to talk to people, I have no problem holding a conversation if I feel like it. Um,
yeah.
but what I've learned is that you can be an introvert and love talking to people, but you get energized when you're alone, which is totally me. Because
Mm,
after those, I think it was like 3 calls, so it was like three
that's right.
hours. Um, I just went into the room and just chilled for the rest of the day because I just was mentally exhausted, and then I felt better. And Jen, I think you said you're an introvert extrovert.
Yeah, I don't even know anymore. I don't even know what the
Yeah, right.
terms are, but both.
Um,
I think I definitely started out as an introvert, which, as I said with Sam, I feel like we can just replace that with empath at this
okay.
point, who
Yeah,
like adapted to being an extrovert as well. But
gotcha.
that took a while.
Yeah, but then you get you recharge yourself when you're talking to people, right?
Yeah.
So
I feel
like
like I'm sucking your energy when I
you're
do
not. No, I mean,
that.
no, I mean, I will say, after our call, I probably won't be calling anyone else. But
That's okay.
no, I don't feel it
Sorry.
doesn't. I don't feel like someone is sucking the energy out of me.
Mhm.
Because I enjoy it in the moment, and just afterwards, it's like, wow, I'm tired. Um,
It's like I wonder if this is something I was talking about with Samantha is like, when social media came about, it was kind of wonderful for people like us because you can kind of stay behind a screen. You don't have to really put that much energy into like interacting with one another. But I feel like it's gone down like a bad path of disconnecting everybody.
mhm,
I mean, for me also, and I think, you can attest to this, is that we remember a time before social media and it was literally different. Um, you know, Connecting with people just looked different and felt different. It felt more real. But she brought up a good point is that, but thank God we have it throughout quarantine, we have
Mhm.
the ways to connect with one another. It is helpful.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I mean, I think ultimately we all have telepathy, so like
mhm.
we won't need this stuff in the future, you
Well,
know?
um, well, it's funny you should say that because there's I don't know if I want everyone to have telepathy and be able to
I know.
hear my just the one thought I had about them and that I immediately got out of my head. But
Jeez. Well, by that time, hopefully we'll have boundaries.
yeah,
Who
and
knows?
filters.
And filters. Yeah.
No, I totally I feel that. For me, social media, yeah, it was great because it's like, okay, these are people who normally don't text, I normally don't call, but then I can still be caught up and feel like I'm connected with you.
Yeah.
But then it got to a point um where people who should be in more contact weren't because they felt like they were being updated by my posts or other people's posts. And
Yeah.
then that sucked. And
Yeah.
then and I will say I'm one of those who I deleted my Facebook 3 years ago.
Oh my God.
Um
Lucky.
I still have my Instagram. But no, Facebook for me was just it came like my decision to delete it came at a time when a lot of my connections with other people was changing as well.
I remember
And
that.
please let me know if I take us off topic.
No,
Feel like but
go for it.
so I had a best friend of like 15 years, and it was the end of our friendship. Um, just happened. I mean, sometimes with connections, when you've known someone for so long, you try to hold on to that connection, even though you
Mm,
see the rips and the tears in it, especially if
yeah.
it's a cord. Like you see it, but it's like, no, it's fine. So when we officially stopped talking, it was really, I mean, I'm not going to go into detail about it, but it was really small. But it was just because it was adding on. And it wasn't really small. No, I'm not gonna downgrade it. It was a thing. It was, and I wish I could say it, but I don't want to get I don't want to get pissed off again.
Yeah.
But no,
Need to connect back to that feeling. Okay.
right.
Yeah.
But basically at that time I was like, okay, that's done. Um, I don't need Facebook anymore because this is just another like more people who feel like they're connected with me, but they're really not.
Yeah.
Um, so I deleted my Facebook at the time, and I don't know if he thought that I just blocked him. So maybe that also solidified him not reaching out to me. But whatever, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm off of Facebook. Um, and that when I got off of Facebook, and it's funny when I got off of Facebook, excuse me, Facebook. It was Facebook. It was similar to the feeling I had was similar to how when in high school I left my high school in junior high and went to a public school for my senior year. So I changed schools, and also when I left um, a recent job. So
Yeah.
it was the same. Like, okay, the connections here are not what I need.
Mm.
Either the cords have already been cut. There's no connection. So why be here? Let me go to a better place, a better. Um, and so that's kind of what has happened. Like
Yeah.
maybe three major times in my life where connections. I did like a clean cut of some things, and then kind of like started over.
See, that's what I was explaining before is that like that's how it used to be. Like if you had someone that you knew in a circle when you were in a previous stage of your life, previous job, previous school, it used to be that you were done with like you were done and then you never saw them again. But
Hmm.
here all of those people coexist in this one place for you.
Yeah.
And it's weird. I always had different friend groups who
Hmm.
never really interacted with one another.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's because we bring people together. But
Yeah.
that's what I tell myself. But yeah, for me that was a little awkward knowing exactly what happened to like someone I worked with,
Hmm.
on my first job. I never thought I'd needed to see that person again. And
Hmm.
I don't know what Facebook's been doing lately, but I'm seeing all these new friend suggestions. And it's like the recognition of this person that they were in that previous stage of my life with maybe a couple of other people that I am friends with on Facebook currently.
Hmm.
It's like that person didn't exist in my memory anymore until they were suggested as a friend. And I was like, I was like, this is so weird because it's like I forgot that there was like memory before Facebook told me I had a memory. It's like it's such a weird I think I've fought it for so long, and now I'm just like, well, for fuck's sake. I'm just kind of like going along with it at this point, and I'm not gonna fight it
Hmm.
because it's just where we are. And I guess the hope is that it's used more of like a tool to connect movements or, express certain things. But I think with everyone expressing their shit, it's like everyone taking a dump in a pool.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to swim in that, like I
Hmm.
don't need everyone's like, I'm just really getting a picture of that. Hope you are too. Gross, stinky.
That's all
Yeah.
right. No, I got you though. I
Yeah.
understand.
Mm,
um,
I know you do.
yeah, and I just want to state one thing. I want to just say I understand that Instagram is owned by Facebook, so
Yeah.
deleting my Facebook is probably nothing, but just one less
No, it
outlet for me.
is. No,
You
it
know?
definitely is. I definitely feel like I lose a part of my soul every time I log on to Facebook. So, well, thank you, my love.
Oh, is it over?
I
Is it, I didn't mean.
I didn't mean to go now.
I didn't. Yeah.
Um, um, no,
Okay.
it's not over. It's not over. Oh
Wait,
my
but did we talk
God.
about? Okay, so we
Oh,
because I
cut all
remember.
that out.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
well, you
Well, not all of it. Some of it.
might have to do a little bit more editing on this one,
That's okay.
and that's okay. Yeah.
That's okay.
But before we started, you wanted to talk about how how communication is going to be once things, you can't even say go back to normal, but once
Hmm.
things get a little bit
Or a
more
connection.
safer,
Yeah.
how are the connections going to be? And I think maybe, and let me know if what I'm about to
Yeah.
say is not where you were going with that. But personally,
Hmm.
I can't see a time. Well, let me back up a little bit.
Hmm.
Before quarantine, I used to see people with masks on, and either they were, from Asia, and I understood, being a fan of Korea, I understood that they have seasons. Okay, I would just be honest, being a fan of K-pop. Um,
Yes.
all right, and I used to
And
follow
by extension, Korea. Yep.
exactly, and I used to follow this couple who did YouTube videos, Simon and Martina, and they've since moved to um, Tokyo and have shitted on Korea and how racist they can be. But anyway,
Oh,
before I found all that out,
yeah.
yeah, they still do blackface. Um,
What?
yeah, like within maybe before COVID, but yeah, the SNL over there, they did blackface. I don't know what the character was. Um, I can't remember if they apologized for it, but it was a thing.
Oh my God.
Um, but that wasn't my point for bringing it up.
So,
Um,
because we have to bring up blackface at least once every podcast.
yeah, and there's also whiteface too, which I don't know how I feel about. But anyway,
Oh, white chicks.
um, yeah, I love that movie.
I
But
love that movie too.
anyway, that's not my point. Let
Yeah.
me.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Oh, am I going to lose it? Oh,
No.
okay. So I said
Korea.
before, so I knew like before quarantine, before COVID happened, I would see people wearing masks, and I knew some of them were used to wearing them because they came from countries where either they had a season where the air wasn't as clean, or that's just what they did when people had colds. And I remember saying, if everybody wore that, I would be in heaven because I'm germophobic. Not as bad as Howie Mandel, but I used to go through some sanitizer before all this happened. So when all this happened, this was normal for me. Um, but so
Yes,
I
that
say
is
that
true.
all to say that once things get safer, I don't see a time where I would not wear a mask because, um, you
Hmm.
know, it's great that we have the vaccines, but it's right now it's like you can still get it. So they're actually telling you not to stop wearing your mask, not to stop doing what you were doing. These
Mhm.
vaccines are just going to help you not get as sick or die. Um, so yeah, I think the future, for me at least, I'm always going to be wearing a mask. I'm always going to be 6 feet away from you, or 12 feet if you don't want to wear a mask. And
Yeah.
I can't see myself going to any large gatherings. I mean, I hated concerts before just because I hate crowds. So like now,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna need something little like elegant, like it's a quiet. This is my performance for the five people in this room, and
Yes.
I'll be in heaven. But yeah. But what do you think is gonna
Yeah.
happen?
No, like that's I mean, I definitely I there's definitely moments where I'm like, thank God we're wearing masks right now because
Yeah.
or like if we're walking down a street because, I was like, let's go on a hike around our neighborhood, which is like not walkable. So we're
Hmm.
walking on like a highway or and I'm like, oh, it's really great that we're wearing this mask because now we can't breathe in like all the pollution and exhaust. So that's
Yeah.
one positive. Um, I mean, I think and I don't I just feel like masks is gonna be the last thing that everyone's gonna be I don't know, it just feels like something's coming that's like bigger.
Uh,
And sorry everybody. I mean not to be like a, it's coming, but like I've always felt though, do you remember that scene in Independence Day
hmm.
where like you know how they did like they would cover different sort of like groups of people. There was like Will Smith as like the main character, and then they had like a couple of other stories that you're all following until like they calmed down to the invasion. And then there was like the hippie ladies who were like at the top of the building holding up
Yeah.
the sign like welcome, but they're like the first to go. Like that's how I feel. That's
Okay.
how I feel sometimes.
Yeah.
That's awful, but I
Hey,
mean,
but
in
it's
terms of
honest.
yeah, I mean, in terms of COVID, I feel like I haven't really thought about it. I will say that I did try to socialize in a mask when we were indoors at like a go-kart place.
Hmm.
And I was having a conversation with someone for at least 10 minutes and I normally don't breathe when I'm talking, but after that 10 minutes, I just started feeling like sick almost
Yeah.
because I wasn't getting oxygen and I wasn't breathing. I wasn't, and I had felt the same way when I went and saw someone else and I was talking to them for a little while and it was like I had just met the person for the first time and I was really excited to talk to them and I get
Hmm.
like very like excited. And so I was talking a lot and I guess I must have been talking to her for about half an hour and I just had this like intense headache and I realized like I feel really bad for people who not only have to work right now
Hmm.
and be people facing like as part of their job. I
Hmm.
mean like people working at McDonald's, it's like they have to be talking and communicating with that thing on all day every day and
Yeah.
that worries me. Like I know that I'm not I mean fully like everyone has to wear a mask for sure. Like I think it's ridiculous when I see people without a mask right now because
Hmm.
it's just talk about connecting and communication. It's like it's literally a symbol to me. You're
Yes.
communicating something to me when you're
It,
not wearing a mask and right now the popular opinion is you're a fuckhead.
yes.
You're selfish or you're stupid.
There's a bunch of fuckheads in my building.
Oh fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck
Uh,
those fuckheads.
yeah. Like out of the six apartments on my floor, only myself and this older lady and her daughter wear masks. Everyone
Oh
else,
god.
you know. So like I've just become rude. Like I'm not gonna hold the door. Like I'll kick. I will kick the door
Use your foot.
open.
Yeah, don't
I would,
don't touch
and
anything,
uh,
Dupree.
you better run. You better run to the door because you don't got a mask on.
I know.
But
Oh, and I don't want you near
yeah,
me.
yeah, I don't,
God.
and yeah, like I do not. The other week, like my neighbor and I, the same, the daughter that I just mentioned, we were outside talking, and originally, like I had just come in, or I just parked, and I was across the street, and first we were talking where I was. We were yelling at each other across the street. We both had on masks, but we were nervous,
Yeah.
And then even when I said, okay, let me, I decided that I should walk across the street and just stand away from her, and we were talking for about 20 minutes, a half an hour, and we
Wait,
were
you
like 12
crossed
feet.
the street?
I crossed the street.
So were you like, "Hey."
Yeah, it was. It was very much that. It was,
Oh my
hey, hey, what's
god.
going on? Blah 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 blah. And then it was like, okay, maybe because I wasn't done taking all my bags out the car yet.
Oh, okay, okay.
So like I was in the middle of getting ready to go in,
Oh.
So then I just, locked up the car and I walked across the street and we started, talking more. And it was a really good conversation. But she was like, we were 12 feet apart. And you can see, like if I moved an inch closer, she would move back and vice versa. Like
Oh, there was an invisible like measurement between you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then we were standing in front of someone's house. And so luckily they had another way to their front door too. So yeah, so while the people in my building are not wearing masks and my connection to them has totally broken, meaning
Mm.
um I'm not gonna say hi to you if I'm not gonna go out of my way to say hi to you because I'm forcing you to talk to me with your uncovered face. But
Yeah.
but anyway, I mean I think
Yeah.
I was listening to another podcast earlier last year. Lauren Lampkus, she, from the wrong Missy. Am I saying her name right?
I don't
You know,
know. You've
you don't know
told me
them?
about her before,
Oh, okay.
but I haven't heard it. Remember, you're the podcast expert on this podcast.
No, not at all. But okay, so was she was talking to someone on a podcast where she was talking about being frustrated and being angry with these people who aren't wearing masks and how it affects her anxiety. And she just had to get to the
Mm.
point where she stopped caring about what other people were doing because you can't control other people.
Yeah.
I can control the fact that my neighbors are coming in not wearing a mask. And one neighbor who came in wasn't wearing a mask had asked us to back up so she could come in. But then
Mm.
when we were asking, well, where are you going? So we know where to move. Then she got an attitude.
Well,
She was like, I don't got to tell you where I'm going. But no, if you want us to, you're not wearing a mask. We want to be safe.
she
This is,
probably just, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
that's so funny.
But,
I'm not telling you where I'm going. Oh
like,
God. Oh
are you
God.
going
I'm
upstairs?
sorry.
Or are you coming to the mailroom? But
Oh yeah, I know. Like, let me be more specific. That
yeah.
this is such a little like stupid story, but that just reminded me of like I was in Colorado, so it was legal. I
Hmm.
was with my sister. I was totally high. We went to a burrito place, and she's like, "Okay, like you go place your order." And so I'm like telling the guy my order,
Hmm.
and then I'm done, and he's like, "What's your name?" And I was like, "Why do you need to know my name?" My sister's like, "You fucking idiot."
you,
Like,
excuse me.
anyway,
That's
drugs are
hilarious.
bad. Drugs are bad.
What did he say?
He just froze. His eyes almost glazed over because I mean, it was Colorado, so I'm sure
Yeah.
it was, not only was I not retaining like information and having a normal discourse with another person, I literally was paranoid. So,
Oh,
yay,
fun.
drugs
Right.
that are bad, that are very bad. Don't do drugs.
Well, let's be honest.
Well,
Marijuana's not a drug, but
that's right.
controversial.
Plant medicine.
Yeah, it helps people. But
Yeah.
and hey, we can talk about that in the future too.
Oh, yes, we will. What the hell's
But
going on with New Jersey, by the way? It was supposed to be legalized, and I heard that there's now more delay. Like they couldn't come to some kind of an agreement. So it's still not like happening yet.
yeah, I
Motherfuckers. Should have known.
because
No
I don't
backsies,
understand.
you guys.
All
No
right,
fucking backsies.
we voted for it.
I know.
Um,
Give it to me.
it helps people.
Don't
Dang it.
arrest people. God.
Exactly.
I
I
know.
don't.
It totally
I don't
helps.
know. I don't know what's going because I think because the ideal of it being hung up to me is just stupid.
Yeah.
I haven't read different articles about it just because I don't want to get angry.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know, but I will. I will educate myself on what's going on so
Yeah.
that we can better talk about it.
Carefully.
Careful.
In consideration of your anger.
Yeah. But
Oh, I
but
miss you.
I miss you too, and
And
it's been
yeah,
great being
yeah.
on. Thank you so much for as I always say, thank you so much for involving me in this.
Oh my God.
Um, to everyone out there, I hope you're doing well in these times, and well, I mean,
Yeah.
doing okay. I don't know, doing well. Is that?
I
Hope
don't
you're
think doing well
okay.
is a thing anymore. I think
Yeah,
it's
right.
just doing.
Doing. I hope you're doing. I hope, yeah, taking it day by day.
Yeah.
That's all you can do right now, right?
Yeah.
But
Thank you, Dupree.
Nice to be in orbit.
Once again, thank you so much for joining me and Dupree Jenkins and Samantha Cagman for today's podcast. It was really, I hope it was something special for you guys, and I hope that you got something to take away from it. If you're still with us, wow, like big ups. Like, thank you so much for sticking around for so long. Yeah, I'm sure you needed to take a couple of breaks, but if you've gotten to this point, bravo. Thank you so much. You're a trooper. Really appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your day.